Okay, here is a compounding interest problem. It says to help pay for a class trip, the sophomore class invested that much from a fundraiser in a 30-month CD. Okay, so here's our formula for compounding interest. It says that it's compounded monthly. That means it's a compound interest problem. So we need to know what all these variables mean first. So P means the principal. Principal, that means the original amount that you had. The principal is $1,500. That's what P is. R is the rate, and it's the annual rate. That's what R in a compounding formula is. That's the annual rate. So you need to know what the annual rate, 3.9 is the annual rate. It's compounded monthly just means that they're going to calculate the interest every month. And that's what this formula down here does. I'll explain the formula in a second too. N is the number of compoundings per year. See how that's an annual rate? This is the number of compoundings per year. And so N and T, these things together, this is where this particular problem confuses some people. But N and T together are the total number of compoundings. Again, compounding means is when they calculate the interest. That's the total number of compoundings, not per year. That's the total number of compoundings. T, remember, T equaled the number of years. T is the number of years. And N was the number of compoundings per year. So T times N is the total number of compoundings. Okay? So the way that this formula works is, I'm not doing this problem yet, I'm just giving you an example. Think about if I said I give you $1,000 and I'm putting $1,000 in a bank account and they're giving me 12% interest rate. They would never do that, but let's say they're giving you 12% interest rate, so 0.12, and they're compounding it every month. That's the reason I chose 12, because it's an easy number. And if I said, how much money will you have after 5 years? So you would do 5 times 12, because in total, how many times are you going to compute the interest? You're going to do it 12 times. You're going to compute the interest 12 times for 5 years. So there's a total of 60 times that you're going to compute the interest. So let's just see what happens. After the first computation of interest, how much money are you going to have in total? What's your amount going to be after the first compounding? Well, when is your first compounding? It's after the first month, right? How many total years? 5 years. But after the first month, you're going to have a little bit of money. How much money are you going to have? Well, you're going to have 1 plus, what's 0.12 divided by 12? It's 0.1, right? So I'm giving you 1% every month, right? And I'm doing that. This is just the first time I'm doing it. What's 1,000 times 1 plus 0.1 equal to? It's equal to 1,010. In other words, you earned $10. That was your interest amount. Your interest was $10 the very first month. So how much money do you have in your account after month 1? Here, let's set this up. Month, amount. So in the first month, after the first month, after month 1, how much money do I have in my account? I have $1,000, $1,010. Okay, what's going to happen the second month? What am I going to do during the second month? I'm going to take my 1%. Remember, I'm getting 1% because I'm compounding that 12% rate. Each month, I'm basically dividing that rate up by 12 months. But now, instead of having $1,000, I have $1,010 in the account. Do you understand? So how much money will I have? Take your calculator out. Sorry, I just realized I made a mistake. My bad. This wasn't 1010. I was thinking of that I had $100. I have $1,000. So I made actually $100 my first month. 1% of 1,000 is 100. So after month 1, I actually had $1,100 in my account. So I made $100 in that first month. 12% would be a really good rate to have, by the way. So after the second month, I'm taking now I have an extra $100 that I'm making 10% interest rate on. So now after the second month, after month 2, I have, if I multiply these together, I would have 1210. I'd have $1,210. In other words, how much money did I make the second month? How much money did I make in interest the second month? I didn't make just $100 like I did the first month. How much more money do I have this month? I have $110 more. Why do I have $110 more? Because I made interest on my interest. I made 1% interest on not just my original 1,000, but on my extra 100. Got it? After the third month, what am I going to do to find the interest for the third month? I'm going to take this new amount and I'm going to multiply it by 1 plus 0.1. And when I do that, I get 1331. 1331. How much money did I make that next month? Subtract those two. How much money in interest did I make in that month alone? I made $121 in interest. So what's happening with this is each month the point of compounding interest is you're making interest on your interest, and that's why the amount is higher than if you just compounded it once a year, because you're making interest on your interest. So that's how this formula here works. So if I took $1,000 and I multiplied it by 0.1 one time, I'm going to get that number there. But then if I took that new number, right, isn't that new number, and I multiplied it by that 1.1 again, which is what I just did, I'll get that number, right? And if I multiplied that by that number, which is the number here, 1210, by 1.1 again, I'll get that number. Well, what's this the same as doing? It's the same as saying 1,000, 1.1 to the third power. And that's what we're doing with this formula here. Okay, so now that you understand that concept, let's talk about what this question is asking and understand how it relates to this formula, but it's slightly different. This says that it's a 30-month CD. Well, 30-month CD means, and it's compounded monthly. So what's the total number of compoundings that you're going to do? If it's compounded monthly and you're doing it for 30 months, how many total times are you going to multiply it by? 30. You're going to multiply it by 30. So the NT, you don't actually have to worry about the years and the N for this. You just worry about 30. Okay? But this N, the number of compounding per year, still matters. What is your N now? 12. It's 12. And what's your rate? And remember, that's your annual rate, 3.9. And your principal is 1,500. So here's my equation. It's 1,500, that was the original amount, your P, plus, or times 1 plus 0.039 divided by 12, because that's your rate, raised to the 30, because that's the total number of times you're going to do that. And that's all you need to do. You don't have to worry about plugging in T's or N's or figuring out the years. You could have done that, but you don't have to worry about that. The number of years would have been 2.5, but that makes it more complicated. And so that's why this does use this formula, but you have to think about it in a slightly different way. And so your answer, just plug that in carefully and you'll get your answer.